Hey, what is going on, guys? Hopefully, you're having a great Friday. If it's Friday, you already know what it is. It's another episode of MillenniYELL with Billy and Mel. What is going on, guys? Like I said, hopefully you're enjoying your last few days of summer because they're coming up quick, and everybody's talking about fall already. Which that was one of my pet peeves. I
I
remember talking
saw.
about listen, you have pumpkin spice for the next 4 months. Let me have my last couple days of summer.
I saw. You know how you feel about the pumpkin spice.
Yes. But anyways, guys, thank you for everybody that's jumping on. If you are jumping on, please let us know where you're coming in from. Comment below, ask questions, interact with us because we want to interact with you.
But dear Lord, thank you for no echo.
Yes, I was gonna give a shout out to the podcasting gods that they've smiled upon us today and said, "Hey, we're gonna let Mel's microphone work today." So we're really appreciative of that. But before we get into today's topic, because it's a really hot topic right now in the world, it's student loan forgiveness. But before we get into that, Mel, what's going on? How are you doing? How's your week been?
It's good. It's good. I actually had gone for several months, 3 or 4 months, getting up at 5:30, going to the gym, in bed by 10:30, got my, skincare routine, got my night cream on, and was feeling really good because most people know my whole life I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And I got into a really good routine, and I've just been really busy, but in like really good ways of the things that I'm doing that I'm just really excited. I have so much to do that I stayed up like 2 or 3 nights this week to get it all done. But I'm really excited. There's a lot happening in the next couple weeks here in Hershey, and we opened up the fresh market at Hershey Town Square, which is a farmers market opening in October, but on the first floor it's grab and go. So I got to be interviewed for that as the executive director for downtown Hershey. I know we haven't necessarily talk too much about that part-time job that I have, but doing a lot of big things behind the scenes. So it's good. I just need to get back onto a routine and going, I skipped the gym a couple of days, and I just feel I need to get back into that balance for me. It worked really well. So that'll be next week's plan after the holiday weekend.
Yes, it is a holiday weekend. It's Labor Day. So again, another end of summer event. Um, but yeah, it's and I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm wearing a brand new shirt I got today.
I love it. After our podcast.
Yes, after our last podcast, we talked with Matthew Rhoda, the Battlefield Mastermind Group, and so it's a group of entrepreneurs in Central Pennsylvania. Where we're located, and it's kind of like a networking group. But it's also like a mastermind, so it's got a little bit of everything, which I love. I don't like to just be tied down to one thing. So it's a great group. Go check it out. But it was a great podcast, so go check that out. That was 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago that we did that. So, but my week has been just pretty average. Nothing really.
I'm jealous.
Nothing really to report. No good, no bad. Just kind of. But
ebbs and flows.
The one thing I do love about fall, before we get into our topic, right, is obviously I talk a lot about it. I've posted a lot about it. It's football season, so fall brings football season. So Alabama football starts this week, so I'm really excited about that. And so
Penn State won.
Last night? They did, right? People are really super excited about that. And we're going to a wedding this weekend.
Oh, nice.
So, but it's different. It's not. It's definitely a millennial wedding. We're going to. They already did the ceremony today, and so tomorrow we're really just going to like the party,
nice.
The reception, which I enjoy. Right?
I like that spread out. That's kind of like 2 days of of love and fun.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty cool idea. Their wedding was more so like a private event, right? Just a couple of people. Where this is going to have a lot more people come to it and stuff like that. Nice. So that'll be fun. So that'll be Saturday. So it's in Washington D.C. So so
that's exciting.
Yeah. So without further ado, right? I think we should talk about the elephant in the room, right? The the probably one of the biggest announcements this year that regardless of who you voted for or who you didn't vote for, President Biden is canceling, for those of you living underneath a rock, right, is canceling $10,000, give or take, of student loan debt, right? And so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, just because of my absolute disdain for student loans, so
Yeah.
to say the least. But when you heard that news, right, when that came across the wire, what was your initial reaction?
Um, it's funny because I have a lot of different thoughts on like overall student loans because some stuff with my school. I know that there was some issues we can talk about, but um, you know, I I think I said this last week. I have about 5,000 left. Like I've been paying monthly. I've been paying monthly still since like I whatever $130 or something a month, I guess, but which is probably the minimum. And I think my initial reaction was some of the videos that I saw of the people who were going through it now and maybe coming at it like in school or coming out of it is completely different from the people who have been paying this off for so long and or paid it off completely. So I'm just curious. I mean, that's one of the things on my list to talk about is that perspective of where in line you are of the student loan before, during, after, because sure, we've paid all this money off and there's a level of who gets the pot, who gets the
Yeah.
the pot, and and who doesn't. That's the whole. That's not the whole thing, but I think that's a lot of what I saw too, with a lot of people that were in our age and older. And again, it's a lot of political based, I think, and for sure. I find it to be funny that you could see completely two different reactions. Like a happy, positive. Hey, this is great for people to pay off, and then you have this. This is bullshit, and we've already paid this off, and there's just two. It is like straight up two completely different opinions.
Yeah, 100%. My initial reaction was I was just kind of I think I was just numb to it. Like I was just like, okay, like this really doesn't, like my initial reaction was like, this doesn't solve anything. Like, yes, for some people that are close to maybe paying off their student loans, it maybe frees up a couple payments, right? That they don't have to make to those things anymore. But ultimately, like for me, my initial reaction was just like, it doesn't really fix the issue. It's just a Band-Aid on the entire, it's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, right? Like it's really not gonna, it doesn't really solve anything. It's a nice gesture, right? But I'm with you. There was really two sides to this thing, and it's just crazy because there's people that haven't gone to college that are mad about it. There's people that have gone to college and paid off their all loans,
Right.
and they're mad about it. Then there's people that are, like I see all viewpoints, right? I understand. I empathize with everybody that's kind of in up in arms about it. Like I understand it, but I'm not either or. I guess like I'm not upset that the government has decided to do this, but I'm not like overjoyed that the government is, because ultimately, we're going to pay for it in some form or fashion right down the road with taxes and all this other stuff.
Yes,
So
that was something
I,
I read up on.
and it is, but I mean, there's a lot of things that we've been forced to pay for through taxes. Like it's not just, it's like, that's what I find interesting is like, yes, like we're going to pay through this through other methods and it's student loans, but there have been other instances where the government has bailed out other sections of the market or the world or our country, and we're like, oh, that's fine, right? Like, well, that's fine. But I
But
think
this
just
one,
I think it's just we live in such a politically charged world now that any issue, right? If
Yep.
any part of one side gets a small victory, it's like the world's worst thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that was kind of my initial reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I also think like I read a couple, I think just because we had decided to talk about this, it's something I don't follow as much, with certain things that are going on that
You mean you just don't
I
watch a lot of the
should.
news, right? Like
I know,
with
I know the bad news, but does
Neither do
this
I.
there's certain things that do like affect individually, so we follow or we read up on and we want to be educated on. I don't personally like talking about things that, and I know you're this way too, but the like things that we don't know or are educated on or have at least a background, that we've kind of had some information on, because when I was looking this up, there was a lot of things that happened over the last couple years that this was already in the plans years for a couple years now,
Yeah.
but that it was an overall plan to lower make things easier for working families, and then consider like things in the future and eliminating things in the future. So like I didn't really follow this plan that they had originally put out over I don't know if this is before the pandemic or during the pandemic. I don't know, but I did read up a little bit too about some of the some of the reasoning on it. I think that what was interesting that I watched a clip on was about the idea of college itself, like going back to the start of like the 4-year college and this idea that you have to go to school and you have to pay all this money. And so many people created debt because of it. And it was this, I don't know when that was of like, I don't know if it was, the 80s or I don't know before that, but like that it started this cycle of college debt, right? And or then the loans, and then it was like not like trapped. It's not like we were like trapped, but I mean, at 18 years old, you're making decisions that we have no idea. Like we talked about making big decisions in life, like deciding where you want to go to school was a big enough decision. Like our finances, like we weren't taught anything about finances and checkbooks and credit cards, and dear lord, I mean, if that was taught in high school, which that's what everyone says, but going to like the step, almost like the start of where this was pushed to get a 4-year degree, and look at trade schools now are so popular and people are getting double income of what some people are graduating at from 4-year degrees, and
Yeah.
sometimes even not necessarily grad school, but so it's kind of funny, like the societal like realm of how this all started with
Mm-hmm.
the loans, and then that it just spiraled out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like I was sitting. So there's two things. I think you're completely right. Like but I know you're right because, like I was saying before, like this is not a solution. This is just a band aid for
Like
a bigger
trying
problem.
to fix what was done. Yes, like
We're
almost
trying to
trying.
fix like 40 years of mistakes.
This is literally
with
like humans needing to go to counseling for lifelong trauma.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to fix these mistakes with a $10,000 investment. Like it doesn't work. Like that's not how this works. And I like you were saying, Megan, my wife, right? For those that don't know, she's a teacher. She teaches at the college level. She teaches at a 2-year college, right, for nursing. And they have better enrollment at this 2-year college than they do at a 4-year
Mm,
college. Why is that? Because they can just take the 2 years of, because that's what essentially a 4-year college is. You take 2 years of bullshit classes.
right, the GE, yeah.
Yeah, and then you take 2 years of your actual classes that you need to take. Right? Oh, there you go. That's Dr. Megan to you.
Oh,
Yes,
yes, yes.
Dr. Megan.
Yeah.
but that's always been a sticking point for me, is like going back to what you're saying, is that we were, society forced upon us that you need to go to school to get a degree, but they never really told you what degrees were in demand. Like, I wish I
Mm-hmm.
would have had like that's a class that I wish I would have took, like in college, or like when you sit down with the person that's helping you pick out your classes, right? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
what degrees are in demand? Like, what are some things that are going to be able you're going to be able to make money to pay this loan back, right?
Right.
Like, it was just like, hey, here's free money, go to a school, have a good time, try to learn something, get a good job, like,
Right.
hopefully. Like, that was the plan, right?
Right. It's like a society, right? Like kind of like what, but none of, I mean, hardly anybody, I wouldn't say that stuck with it. I mean, there's so many people that are not even working in the field that they have a degree from. So they spent all this money and they're not even using the education. I do think that there's also things that we've talked about in earlier, one of our earliest podcasts about college and about the experience and, all the other social and things about college and benefits. But I think that it's almost this like this cycle because of the debt or the interest and like that people, it's like you almost start off right out of school with like this burden, and then some people can't even, um, even when there were people, I remember on their student loans, like they were in default during
Yeah.
school on their student loan. And then they couldn't, it's like, then they can't finish school because they're
Yeah.
on default and already have this debt and they can't keep up with the current payments, let alone what's going to be coming. And it's almost like this glorified, like, go to college and get this degree, but the what you have to go through, to get it. And it's not everybody. I mean, like people pay for themselves outright,
Yeah.
obviously, no student loans, and parents, have had been able, to pay for student, for their education. Um, and hopefully they're using their degree because that's an investment on the parents' part, that they, did. But it's interesting because I wanted to talk about with my school. So, you know, um,
Because you had a completely different
so I
experience
went
for
to art.
school,
I
yeah,
did,
than
and
I
I
did.
went to art school, and we were all year round. So we had quarters, and we had a shorter summer, and winter, and we just went. I have a 4-year degree, but I got it in 3 years. And I have a bachelor's degree. But what's interesting about, and I'd have to maybe just try to look this up so I don't speak, but um, I heard after I graduated a little bit about the art institutes, especially the one in Philadelphia, which isn't there anymore. And I'm not sure if this has anything to do with it because there were accreditation issues. And I don't know what that was from, but there was these, when you get the thing like the lawsuit, oh, you could be a part of this
Yeah.
general lawsuit. And I'm like, oh, it was about the guidance counselors pushing um, student loans on the students. And again, I don't know. I mean, I just saw some things. I read it a little bit. They got some type of in trouble somewhere. And looking back, it's interesting. Do you even remember the process of, or people maybe that are watching? Like, do you remember the process that you were sitting down and looking at these classes and looking at the cost? I mean, it was, mine was pretty expensive because of the room and board too. I could put it in the loan. And you get like a refund or something that you can pay for your rent if you
Yeah, I
like
remember that.
outside. But um I looking back and I'm like, I wonder I don't remember what it felt like being, and I don't want to use the word pressured, but I wonder that you're just like signing away on this student loan because you want to go to this school and you want this education. um are there some that get taken advantage of to sign up for, I don't know. I
I
just
think
don't remember.
I think 100%. I think it was so easy to get these loans, and we didn't really understand like what a loan meant, right? Like
Mhm.
what that entailed. We're just saying to ourselves, well, we need to go to college. I want to go to, if I'm going to have to go to college, I want to go to the college I want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's a whole nother can of worms, like going out of state versus in state. Like out of state tuitions is usually is much more expensive
Mm-hmm.
than in state. And so like getting those loans, like I feel like they were just like given out, right? Like
Right.
everybody was going. I remember walking onto the University of Alabama campus, and at the time they had like maybe like 20,000, a little bit more than 20,000 students on campus. And I remember their goal, and they would openly say it, like our goal by the end of, for next year is to have 30,000 students on
Mm-hmm.
campus, right? So it's like, for that just means more money for them, right? They're
Right.
bringing in more money, but that also means more student loans. And if you're
Right.
gonna, and they can't be the only school that has that goal to increase enrollment. So the only way, and let's be honest, most people probably, well, most people weren't saving for college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our generation, like like a lot of our generation had to either go scholarship route and heavy student loans, right? And if you couldn't get enough federal
I think that
loans,
was the
then you had,
majority. Yeah, I would
yeah,
think. Even though I
and
think the boomers were the ones that wanted to give us things that they didn't have, right? So they did.
yeah,
I think a lot of them did try to pay for, for school for if they could. But I mean,
yeah. I mean, but then you get into the whole deal of the cost. Like I have 4 points here that I believe that people should be pissed off about rather than student loan forgiveness. And one of them you already hinted on is and we kind of just been talking about it, like college was oversold, right?
mhm,
And the value of your loan versus your education
right.
didn't match up,
Yeah, and
right?
I just literally Googled it and I found it. It said settlement gives some Art Institute students debt relief. It says it forgive nearly $103 million in student loans after a multi-state settlement of complaints that the company used high pressure tactics to enroll unqualified students. So I don't know what the unqualified means, um, but yeah, so clearly I didn't get any of that money back.
No,
I clearly didn't apply for that
but
forgiveness,
but
that
that's
lawsuit.
but that's all being, and a lot of those were probably private loans, and I'll get to the comment below
Mhm.
here in a
Yeah.
second. But yeah, there were so many kids that probably, I don't know how to put this lightly, but I'm just gonna say it, probably shouldn't have gone to college. They got loans, went to college, dropped out, maybe
Mhm.
didn't get the degree that they like. I don't want to downplay any degree at college, but there are certain degrees that it's harder to get a job in just because they're just more obscure, right? The more obscure degree you get, the less jobs there are going to be, right? But Kevin said that my out of state tuition at Arizona State was less than my in state tuition at Penn State. What is that about? And
Yeah.
that goes back to one of my one of my points. I don't know if this is one that you had brought up, but just the overall cost of college is outrageous these days. Like
Mhm.
I don't even know how. I'm sure you could look up real quick, like what's the cost of of Penn State. Like what's a year cost there? But it's probably pretty outrageous,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
In-state 17,000. This is in 2016. Let me see.
well, it's definitely gone up since then.
Admissions fees. Okay. It says tuitions and fees. PA resident 19,000. Non-PA resident 38,000. Rooms. Oh, sorry. Room and meals as well. So total for PA is 32,270, and a non-PA is 51,635 for Penn State. Like that's yeah, undergrad. Wow.
That's ridiculous.
That's wild. I mean, mine was 27. I mean, at that time it was a lot because it was in Philadelphia and um uh but it was 3 years. So instead of four, if it was spread out over 4 years technically, um, but it's wild. I mean, I think that like looking back, I think you're absolutely right. They're trying to fix like this is it. It's just something that was so far gone, and like there's just something that needs to be done. Like I'm dealing with something right now where we tried to compromise, something was done, not the right way it was supposed to be done, on purpose ish, whatever. And we have to fix it because it's getting really bad. And I just literally said, we're nixing it completely. There's no way to go around this. There's no way to make half the people happy, this person happy. It's causing so much problems. We're just going to completely nix it and we're done. Now we can't say this with student loans.
No.
However, on a very small level, it's hard when stuff has gotten so bad.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like you can't. No one thinks, well, I don't think no one, but I don't think canceling all student loan debt is a good idea because we're going to have to pay for that down the road. Like the government's going to still want their money. I just think that it is ultimately a big problem just because. Let me go to this first. So, like going back to like the original $10,000 being forgiven, and like going back to the
and it says
idea of
I thought there was, what was the 20,000 that?
if you had a Pell Grant. So
Okay,
if
yeah.
you got a Pell Grant from, you got $20,000, and then if you don't have a Pell Grant, you got $10,000, right? Um, like again, going back to that, like the original thought, like are you for it? Are you against it? Like I can see where there's going to be some good from this. Like if you have less than $10,000 student loans and it wipes out your entire student loan debt, and let's say you free up $300 or $400 a month, that's a huge significant difference compared to like having to pay that, and the cost of living is insanely high because of inflation being high, right? That's a huge weight lifted off somebody's shoulders. I don't understand like how, like I'm not mad about that. Like ultimately that money is going to be used somewhere else in the economy. Like it's going to be used somewhere else, hopefully, right? But then again, I can see where people are upset too.
Yeah, I think it was targeting more like lower to middle income people, I think. But and I mean, it could help anyone in all ages. So it's trying to be, something that's like not inclusive. But I think it's situational. Like when I was saying about perspective, I guess I was trying to think of the word situational because there's a lot of things that have been happening lately in politics that are very controversial and very, left and right. And until you're in that situation, sometimes you don't really know. Oh, Pete and I went to college together. Actually, we were really good friends. So 100% agree. Cost is about immediately go into debt. AIPH. The stories. But yeah, I mean, I think it's situational because it's interesting. There could be people who, like we talk about political sides and what agree and don't agree and are for or not for. But when you're in it, if you're a single mom right now and you're you're like having to pay all your bills. I mean, I have my own income, I would just rely on myself. It's hard sometimes and it's just a single person and you don't have two incomes providing all of the bills for a 3-bedroom house. And I mean, I could live in an apartment, but it's probably gonna be the same exact cost as this, and all of your bills and all that. Like, it's interesting because I feel like people wouldn't know what they would do until it happened or it was presented. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if there's people that have, whether it's 10 or more, I mean, if they had 20 and they were like, oh my gosh, I could take this down to half. Right. I just wonder if if it could be situational where you see people, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you because let's like it is situational. Like so, for someone that doesn't have any student loans, I can totally understand why you're upset. Like I totally get it. You're like, I got to pay for this. I didn't go to that college. I didn't take out the loan. I
Right. I
understand that.
paid. Yeah.
Yeah, But then on the same token is like there are people that are maybe agree with those people that have student loans, but they're like, hey, like I'm going to take the student loan forgiveness.
Right, right. It's free money. Like,
Like you're let's not get it twisted. Like no one, regardless of what side you're on politically, right? Um, you're taking that forgiveness. Like you're not just saying no. You know what? No, I'm not taking it.
right.
I'm going to continue to pay the student loan. If it's going to wipe out your student loan debt, you're like, heck yes, sign me up. Like,
Right. I think the more people that are, I guess I would say I'm curious to see the people who are, I wouldn't say, on like on social media, I've seen, people and the people that are like angry about it. I'd be curious to see if it's more of the people who have already paid off their student loans versus people right now that still have them. Because we have an opportunity to say, well, yeah, I'm going to apply for this. I have $5,000 left. I'm going to take the free money.
yeah,
Or it's like, well, I mean, I don't agree with the entire program. I don't agree with the entire platform. I don't agree with helping people that it's giving, I have paid off, 17,000, or I had 17,000 or whatever it was, and I've paid off that much. It's not fair, yeah. I mean, I think you're faced with a decision, like, are you going to stand for the overall, and say that it's not fair for these people, and I don't agree with it? Are you going to be like, nah, I'm going to get my money? Like,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
so I get it, but I think it's interesting. That was one of my questions, was what age, what age are the people that, and is it more political driven, or is it like personal opinion?
I think what happens on both sides is, and we kind of hinted at it before, like the news and stuff like that, right? Like, I think these types of issues have been so politicalized, right, as weapons,
Right, right.
like that we're going to
That's a
use
good
it
word.
against the other
As a
side
weapon.
as a weapon, that we can't see the facts for what they are, right? It's however, whoever has the loudest voice, right? They always say that whoever has the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And so whoever's the loudest voice, like, there's, like I said, I am, for those that know me, I'm very middle of the road type of person when it comes to any issue. I want to know both sides before I make a decision. But I've heard what had angered me, and it goes to like back to the situational thing that you were talking about, and I wrote it down because I would have forgot what they were talking about. But what I'm pissed off about, being a millennial, I'm going to actually yell. We haven't yelled in a long time about this on the show, but I'm yelling today that I feel like this is another issue that millennials are going to get blamed for, right? That we're going to get blamed for this, that we're complaining that we have to do this and XYZ and stuff like that. And that, I heard so many people talk about, oh, I don't want to pay for the loans for some liberal arts, person that took out loans and they have a useless degree and they don't pay they're not paying their loans and they're lazy and all this other bull crap. It's like, no, the vast majority of people that are still paying on their student loans are good people, are good,
and
hardworking people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's that's what I'm saying. There's different generations, I feel like Gen Xers have mostly paid off. Some of us are still paying off. I know friends that had put $500 a month towards it. A lot got it paid off a lot quicker, wanted to get it done and say that it was paid off. I still had credit card debt up until a while ago that it was like I had to spread this stuff out, but I guess I could be applying more to it, but now that I don't, and I should, but then the younger generation who is more fresh out of college, and Matt Flinchball, who posts a lot of, things about a lot, he posted a video, and it was a girl that was being interviewed, and she's like, I just got out of college. I have rent to pay and I have a cat. and I have a cat to pay for. And he posted right after, like, oh my God, she has a cat. And it was just this like video, because it's also just a perspective of, are we, it's for the working families or the working people, or to make things easier, and to in future take down the payments, lower the payments, or lower this, or spread things out, and like the overall picture. But it's just funny of what's going around, that people like, I don't want to pay my loan. I want free money. I don't want to pay. I have a cat to pay. It's just like it's a good analogy. Like for like the younger generation, like, I have a cat to pay for. It's like people have families and like children to feed,
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting is, I was thinking of like who, everyone has a say in this, everyone has an opinion, but where they stand because of their experience. And when you're going through it, like they're going through it now, it's just like divorce or anything that, has been a situation, like they don't, that's the whole thing. Like, you have a cat, like that generation is saying that, where we've gone through it and we're still going through it. And then the next generation has already done it. So they're all looking at these people who have no idea, like 5 years later, 10 years later, the experience that we had. So we look back, like, if you've gone through a divorce, and you're saying, and again, they're not all the same, they're all different, but you're looking back at somebody that's going through it now. Like, we were in that position at that time too, maybe, know, and we look back at somebody and we're like, oh, you want to like, shake them or help them or suggest this, but it's just not the same perspective, because you haven't gone through it and then come out of it.
Yeah. There's some people that are just mad just because other people are mad, right? They're just following the crowd, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. And the people who are like, you already paid it off, you already did this, like, and there's always going to be something that comes through that's going to help other people and not help some, Yeah. So it isn't fair, but I think I think taking a step back, it's like the overall picture of what's being done. Is this the best for, what, like, I don't know.
Like, I don't mind the overall idea of student loans. Like, I get college has a cost, and college shouldn't necessarily be for everybody, in a sense, because college is another level of education, right? It's a more professional type of education, but I just
I think I hear you, because it's like it's something to somewhat help give some relief, right? But is it a long-term solution? Like,
it's not.
And not only that, I mean, when you think about it, some of this debt has been on other things of debt. It's just more of the societal idea of credit cards and debt, and like how it's like abused, and not, people don't have finance, obviously in your profession, and like don't have aren't responsible with money or credit cards. It's just this overall bubble of like lifelong debt that people, it's like this stress of just a burden of what, and it's like we're I don't know. I mean, is it just that this is the first thing that, I mean, it was supposed to be done years ago, I guess, is what I've heard, but is this because it's like the first thing that's rolled out as doing something? But
yeah, like I said, I just feel like it's it's like it's like your birthday, right? And you're getting all these gifts, and then someone comes to the party that brings you a gift that you asked for like 10 years ago, right? Like, it's like, and you're like, oh, great, like, thanks, Susie, for this, this iPad that I
the shuffle, iPad shuffle.
Thanks for this, this shuffle that you just gave me. I had, can't wait to use it. Right? It's like it's that type of feeling. It's like a little too late, and now the gift doesn't match the time, right? Because people have been struggling with this for far too long, and there's other, like, I've always been a big proponent of, like, and I was reading an article about this because I wanted to be prepared too. And the number one complaint isn't that we want our student loans forgiven. We just want them to be easier to pay off. Like, I've been paying on student loans and I've been out of college since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I can pay off like, I'm almost like 15 years into this, like, house payment basically
Mm-hmm.
that I've been making, right? And at least when I pay my house off, I'll have equity in my home. Like, I don't even use my degree anymore, right?
You're right. That's really interesting that we're like paying off something for the rest of our lives that we already got. It's kind of interesting because it's almost like we're just we're just
It's like
dragging,
renting. It's like you're just, yeah, it's like you're
we're
dragging.
dragging this payment along. I mean, we could pay it off sooner. Like I said, I mean, there's people that can
Of,
put
of
more money
course.
towards it. But I look at different situations of like, what can I spread out? I even during I think it was right after my divorce, I actually deferred my student loans and I didn't get like any penalties or anything. It was like an income based thing, and that's the other thing that I was going to say. Isn't this about income? It's only up to you have to be. It's like $125,000 or less that you make a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's like if you're single, it's 125.
oh my gosh, Peggy.
Yeah, I had to pop that up. That is true. That is true.
Okay, it was all worth it.
I'm not demonizing my college experience. I'm just saying we need to make this. There's ways to fix this issue. We're just choosing not to do it for some reason. But yeah, it's 125,000 for single, and I believe if you're married, you file jointly.
250.
It's like 250
Yeah.
is what I believe.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, I guess that's like you look at the average, person that would be wanting to pay off, I guess, is less than that. But people that make above that could have a lot more loans, whether they're their profession, like in medical fields, who have, $300,000 worth of, and
yeah,
I mean, not that I mean, $10,000 is still it's still $10,000, but
yeah.
they won't qualify. So it's still a qualification. I think, yeah. And then are some people not going to get it just because, like, if because they're like, it's random, it's only so much is there, it's gone.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know, like, because one of my friends asked me, and he was like, "Hey, is my student loan going to be forgiven?" I was like, "Well, is it federal or is it private?" And he's like, "Well, it's private." I'm like, "No, you don't get any forgiveness for that."
Right.
So
It's only federal loans, which was like, isn't that like Parent Plus loan
yeah,
too? And well, what about what was I guess that's the thing, like the Sally Mae.
yeah. I mean, there there's just so many different variables inside this thing that we've let go for too long, and probably just because there's other things going on in the world. But I mean, it's just that we've could have done a little bit better job what it
Is
comes
this
down to.
like a something is better than nothing?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean at this point, I guess it is. Like, I guess it is better that we do a little bit of something than, but at the end of the day, like, for some people, like, that might take care of just the interest, right?
Right. Well,
You
I
know.
think two things. It's like, I think that a lot of the splits is, I've worked really hard. We're working, we work to pay this off. And then it's the idea of people who are just basically wanting this stuff. It's entitlement and or wanting stuff, given to them for free and taken care of. Like, so there's different perspectives. we
I
don't
think,
we don't condone on the millennial. What is that?
yeah,
Disclaimer.
yeah. But I think, like what I've always said, if they were going to forgive this loan, like if they were going to forgive any amount, right? I think there should be more requirements. I think it shouldn't just be like anybody and everybody. I think it should be, people that have been out of college for a certain amount of years. Like if you just coming out of college, like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I don't think you should have your student loans forgiven. I think the people that have been in line for a really long time paying this, in
Well, yeah,
line
because it's
dragging this
allowed.
payment,
Yeah, because sometimes they're allowing some of the current students right now, I think, can apply. Um, I
which
mean,
is
it depends.
ridiculous.
It depends on
That
it.
is ridiculous in my mind.
Because
Like,
that's the whole thing is like, so basically you're basically just going to get free education at the time, like right now, um, which doesn't really make sense to what a student loan is if you're going to be giving it to you while you're in school. But I think the tax thing is really interesting because they were saying that you won't pay tax on federal, but the state can
which is ridiculous. Is
the
absolutely
states can do
ridiculous.
it. So it's actually, so that's really interesting is that they're making this on the federal level, but then the states can decide. And a lot of them already said that they're going to they're absolutely I don't know that it's fully adopted in a sense, but that they were going to have state income tax.
Yeah,
They're
ten
going to be
thousand
taxable.
dollars.
North Carolina, and then a couple other ones had already come out when I was looking up.
Like, and I don't understand what their rationale is behind that. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand why a state would say, "Hey, we're gonna," like, unless they just want to. Again, it's politicized, right? It's a political weapon that they can use and be like, "Hey, the Democrats are forcing us to do this, right? The Republicans are forcing us to do this, right?" So it's like it just goes to back being a
Mm-hmm.
political weapon that every time any issue comes up, it's the people that pay, right? The people foot the bill for the government's issues, right? To put it lightly. And this is just another issue that we're going to have to pay for down the road even more because it doesn't solve the problem again. It just, again, it puts a band aid on a bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to sit down and figure it out. They just want to be like, okay, like what can we do to like and especially because we're coming to midterm elections, people just want to
Get
get votes.
yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. Like people just want to get votes, and that's all they care about these days. Is like, how do I stay in office? Like, it's not how do I help people. It's how do I stay in office.
Yeah, I mean, it's what, $16 billion or something that
Yeah, it's
I
just
had put down in my notes. I mean, um, yeah, it's interesting because I think I was gonna talk like looking back at things that are done for certain reasons and the student loans to get more people to college. Was that something that was to ultimately help people? Was that something that was, I didn't look at the history of it, but was that something that was just trying to get more people to the school, and money and interest and all
I
those
think it's
things like
100. I think it's 100%. Colleges started thinking about more about profit than they actually thought about
about
the
helping
education.
people to get there. Yeah.
100%.
And then
100%.
I think then you have greed that comes in. I mean, you have some really interesting things going on with the sports, with high school sports right now and recruiting for colleges, and then colleges recruiting, and that's really interesting of some of the things and how much money is spent trying to get high school relationships through Adidas and through Nike and through brands, trying to cater to high school athletes to get them to go to the schools that are Adidas and or Nike. And like I've had conversations with a couple people that have really great children that are great athletes, and they're in like 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and they're getting these trips and doing all these things, and the money that they're spending, which is is illegal in certain. I mean, there's not, there's things that people can get in trouble. When you look at it, is this really what's the best education or the best experience, or is this about money and about getting, these, recruiting these, I'm talking about athletes in a sense, or, but where is it in the line of, back then? It's like it's almost just gone so downhill because it was for the wrong reasons, right? And then it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I think that there's so much that you're like, yeah, it's been this way.
Yeah.
And then how do when you're like, when this all happens, like, how do you really retract this 40 years of
I don't think you'd stop this thing. I think it's a speeding train, and there's no way to stop it or slow it down. And you were talking about it. It's just like college campuses across the board are more concerned about how to bring in new students, because that's why they're always updating facilities, and like they're always updating like the most weird parts of campus, like the things that don't really matter. But then like you walk into an engineering classroom and things falling apart, right?
right.
And so, like, coming from Alabama, I can speak about this. Like, when I first got there, the stadium wasn't very big. I mean, in comparative to what it is now, I think it fit like 70,000 people, which that's still a lot of people, right? But that's like an NFL stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But when I left, it fit 100,000 people. So they upgraded the stadium. Where do you think they got all that money to upgrade the stadium from?
Yeah,
It's by charging more tuition.
Oh yeah, and donors and people that are like people that are probably making money off of it. I mean, there's obviously, there's
oh yeah, the alumni association. I love getting calls from them saying,
I mean, people that have millions of dollars that donate to have their name on stuff and want to see, but is it, like, what is it about making it the best of this and the best of that? I mean, there's, I saw some videos of because college football is starting, and I've seen recently some of the games that just happened this week. And I mean, I thought Penn State, I've been to a couple Penn State games, and I think that's like, it's crazy. It's wild. The whiteouts, it's so cool. And some of these other schools are, I mean, it's like this competition of this an entertainment, it's become, it's just, it's extra. It's just like watching it. It's like, it's a show. It's really cool. But it's the experience that I don't know if they're selling that too. Maybe.
Yeah. No,
I mean, I can't imagine, 4 years of that. I think it's, I didn't go through it, but I think it's really cool.
Yeah. No, it's definitely cool, but it's definitely comes at a cost. And it just goes back to, yes, there are some alumni that make that make donations and stuff like that. But again, like, you just look at the cost of school going up every year, like, and are they paid the teachers that much more? Probably not. I can't speak 100% to that, but it's become more of a business than an education, a place of learning. That still happens there. People still get degrees and they still graduate and they still go on to do things, but for the vast majority of people, I think I wrote a stat down, like, it was like 52, or like, no, it was like 48% of the degrees that are acquired in college are business degrees, right? They're not even specialized. They're just generic business degrees.
And you can go anywhere. I mean, look at all the people that, come out of college with a degree or not. I mean, very little that I know went for medical device sales, but the people who are in medical device sales and pharmaceutical sales that are making $150,000 to $250,000 a year just had probably something like that, or sales, or
or maybe maybe didn't even have a degree in business.
Or
Maybe it
they
was like,
and they don't, you're right. I mean, it's interesting because I know a lot of those people work really hard, but you're right, like, you don't have, um, you know, what the it's more getting in and then having that experience, but they're, it's a high income, profession, but I think looking back at a lot of the things that I just remember too. I think, maybe well after I graduated, but not as much recent. Um, that I think I'm talking to people about where they want to go to school, especially guys, and with sports and whether they play or that they don't, or they. I think I think it has been a lot about the experience. Like I wonder too if that all that money's going into like sell the experience. Like you have people that just like I want to go to Duke or I want to go to Clemson. Like I don't. There's this maybe their parents went there, in these like big 10 schools, but it's interesting. That is it going for the degree? Yeah, like the education.
yeah, I
Originally,
mean,
I guess that's what I'm saying. Originally, this was, the student loans were there to, to sell them there to for the education. They can't afford it, or hey, come get educated and then pay it off later, right? I mean, it was
yeah,
more for
yeah. I mean, it's like,
degree. It was more for after high school experience, more learning and more knowledge and more education in the specific fields and right. And then now it's in a way to pay for that, but now it's like the show.
yeah,
And it's not always. I know I shouldn't generalize, but
yeah. No, I mean, but like, I mean, just going back to that, it's just, I mean, I think you were spot on. It's just more about, I mean, the loan was meant to help people that maybe couldn't afford it, but that were still good students and wanted to do something better with their life. I think it just got out of hand. I think colleges got more concerned about profit. I think loan companies said, "Hey, this is a great way to make money um, because this is a hot product because people need." And I think both sides took advantage of the consumer, and
I just Googled. Okay, keep going.
they
Sorry.
put a lot of people in a bad situation that in a product that you can't easily pay off. And like I said, I don't have a problem with student loans. I don't want my student loans forgiven per se. I'm going to take that $10,000 regardless. However, like I never asked for my loan to be forgiven. I want to pay it back. I went to college. I got a service. I deserve to pay for it, but I shouldn't have to pay for it for the next 15 to 20 years. Like that's a problem. That is the problem. Is
Right.
that
And it's also, I think, look, we had a lot of, with unemployment and the checks, during the pandemic, the income, I forget what it's called. But it's also going back to working, pushing the idea of working harder and making more money and trying to bring more income, or getting things given to you or forgiven or for free, or here's free, handout. And like, so I think that's also the difference. But I did Google real quick because I was like, duh, we should be talking about when this started. It said on Wikipedia, is everything on the internet's true, right? Federal student loans were first offered in 1958 under the National Defense Education Act. They were available only to select categories of students, such as those studying engineering, science, or education.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because they felt like we were falling behind the other countries in those fields, and so they wanted to
Oh, and the
put more
launch
people.
of the
They
satellite. I see.
they wanted to put us in a different place educational wise for those platforms, and
Well,
so
it's come a long way from there.
yeah, and so from humble beginnings, I think really the if you look, I did that same search, and
I did. Who is to blame for student
it
loans?
yes, yes. I think it really started to take off. If I remember my reading correctly, that it really started to take off in the early 2000s. Those loans, they've been around for a long time, but the loans that we're seeing today are really from that early 2000 period, like late 90s, early 2000s. That's when like if you look at the amount of debt that was occurred in over the time period, that was a big chunk of it was right there. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, I think today was a really good show. Um, and it's a subject that we like to talk about. We probably talk about it for the next hour. But like I said, I think it was an overall great show. But there is again, guys, for those that are just joining, maybe this is the first time you've ever seen our show, listened to on all the different platforms are on SoundCloud, Spotify, all the great platforms, right? Make sure you check us out there for your audio listening pleasure, right? If you don't want to watch us live, you can listen there.
But who doesn't want to watch this?
Yeah, I mean, the show is so much better live than it is audio.
Yes.
But if you miss us, right? If you got stuff going on, you got life, we understand. There's an audio version. Listen to us in the car, right? When you're driving to Penn State football,
I was gonna say
you have a 2-hour drive in most cases, so you can listen to us.
College.
Listen to a couple episodes. But anyways, right? So if you're watching for the first time, listening, there's a part of the show where we like to do the millennial meme of the week. And so
millennial meme.
it's been a while since we've done a meme. So I went ahead and grabbed it this week. Mel will do next week. We're assigning that as our homework for next week,
Yes.
depending on what the
Topic
show is about. Yes. But so my meme of the week is so let me take that banner away. So it's a little old lady. She's got her glasses. She looks like she's looking at a computer. She's got a really concerned face, like she's like doesn't really know what's going on. And it says still paying ... my student loans. And so it's just kind of a funny picture of like how we're still paying our student loans. So but I thought that was a good one. And then also, guys, because if you were to listen before the show, like because we have a little conversation before we jump on, Mel mentioned that she loves to be on camera, loves to talk. Right? If you know Mel, that is not a jab at her. She will
I said that in my own mouth.
easily admit it. But so like I said, we've been talking for about an hour anyway, so why not give Mel a little bit more time Mel's moment. So it's a Mel gets to share with us some piece of advice going into the weekend and lead us, in a positive way. So Mel, go ahead, take it away.
Well, I have determined in the last couple of weeks, and this is something more personal and or spiritual, that no one is coming to save us. So this is a overall picture in life. And we can save ourselves. And I think that, making sure that number one priority is you're taking care of the things that you need to take care of for yourself, for your family, for your kids. And that if there are things that come to us, and opportunities and or, financially, that's great, and take it as you want to take it. But we need to also just remember that we need to, I think, rely on ourselves and our hard work and, be true to that.
Yeah, I love that. And there's actually, I can't remember her last name, but I know her first name's Mel. She's like a motivational speaker.
Mel, maybe.
I can't remember her name, but she talked about that. There's no one coming to save you, and which is scary and good at the same time, because you're like, oh, it's all on me. But in the same token, you're like, oh, it's all on me. So I can make decisions. I can do some things. I can quickly make this a better situation. So I think that was great kind of segue. That was perfect just for today. That was great. So, but Anyways, guys, we hope that you enjoyed today's show. If you did, let us know in the comment section. But even if you enjoyed it really well, right, go download this, right? Go help us out. Check us out, subscribe, like, comment, share, whatever you need to do.
Yes.
Help us out here. We're definitely trying to grow this thing, and we appreciate everybody that jumps on and comments and stuff like that. So, but anyways, guys, enjoy your weekend. It's going to be beautiful outside. Go outside, hit some golf balls, drink some beer, do something fun.
Yes.
But we will see you next week, Friday, 2 o'clock, for another episode of the MillenniYELL. Have a good weekend, guys. We'll talk to you soon.